Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone is having a good day and a good start to the new year. Today is January 21st, 2025. It's hard to believe that we're coming towards the end of the first month of this new year already. Well, this video is going to be a little maybe boring to some of you. I don't know, but I've had some requests off and on asking me how I got started in radio and things like that. So I thought, especially shortwave and just radio in general. So I thought, well, yeah, I'll do that. Um, so this is just going to be how I started my radio journey, and from what I can remember anyway, because it's been about 50 years ago. I still remember some of it, but I mean exact details. But this is going to be how I my shortwave thing started, basically. So I was born in the last half of the 60s, well, 1966 to be precise. So I'm Gen X. So I'm going to start about 1976 when I was 10. Now start actually 74, whatever, but as long as I can remember, I've had a really big interest in music. I've always loved music, the rock music, any kind of music. Basically any kind of music. There's a few I don't listen to because I can't stand it, but I won't get into that. But I'm just going to start around 1976. I was 10 years old. It was the bicentennial here in America. And I used to listen to a lot of FM radio. We're talking, the disco era was coming in, but they were still playing a lot of things like Led Zeppelin and The Who and all those, Steppenwolf and all those different bands. And disco was starting to come in, the Bee Gees and just all the disco era stuff. And I listened to that, the Carpenters, ABBA, a whole list of rock and soft rock and pop and stuff I listened to. And I would listen to it almost, not every night, but almost every night because it was such a big part of me. And I'd sit in my room and I had this little portable transistor radio, and it was one of those that was multi-band. I'll try to put a picture of it up. It's not the one I had, but it looked like that, and you'll get it. It was one of those that had AM, FM, police band, weather band, TV band, SW1, SW2, that kind of thing. So I would listen to a lot of, as I said, late night, FM, all the rock and stuff, and different rock shows. So one night, I also listened to medium wave sometimes, which or our local AM, which we know as medium wave. And back then, local AM or medium wave, it was a lot different than it is now. I mean, here in southern Illinois where I live, we had a lot of independently owned AM stations, and you could hear all kinds of a variety of different programs. There might be call-in shows where somebody's calling in and telling a ghost story or some kind of paranormal event they had. It might be a show about cars. It might be a show on music. They would pick a musician, Elvis, The Who, Led Zeppelin, anybody, and they would spend an hour playing some of their music and giving you some background on them, little, sort of a documentary thing, and just all kinds of different shows across the board, from Texas all the way up to Chicago, out to the East Coast. I could get all this stuff, and that was very, very interesting. But after a while, I would get a night that I didn't want to listen to FM because I'd already listened to music, top 40 with Casey Kasem, things like that. I didn't want to listen to medium wave or AM as, local AM. And I had all these different bands on this radio, and I thought, what the hell is that? I wonder. So police band was pretty self-explanatory. You're supposed to be able to hear your local police in these bands. So I'd tune up and down, and I really didn't hear anything that I remember. So that was just, who cares? The TV band was just obviously, I could get the audio feed from our local TV station, but I could watch the TV station. So what's the point in that? So that didn't interest me. So I seen the SW1 and SW2. So I wondered what the hell that was. I didn't know what the hell shortwave was. Didn't know anything about it. And because like I said, this is 76. I'm 10 years old. And so one night, I do remember I went. I think it was SW2 I tuned, and it was night, probably between 9 p.m. and midnight, and the wrong time for the upper band. So I'm sure it was up, you know, 16 meters or somewhere, which I didn't know what the hell meters was. I didn't know what bands were. I didn't know what a damn shortwave was. So I'm tuning around, and I guess just static, maybe an occasional whistle or a whine or weird noise. And I thought, well, this is damn boring. So, you know, who cares? Nothing there. I don't get what this band is. So later on, I tried SW1, and I'm tuning around, and I guess I came across 41 or the 49 meter band again. Like I said, I didn't know what the hell bands were. I was just spinning the tuning dial to see what happened. And I guess I must have hit one of those bands because I just started getting station after station after station. And I was hearing, they would identify themselves as Cuba, uh, Radio Japan, uh, Radio Australia. I thought, well, how in the hell can I be getting stations from Romania, Cuba, and Australia? I said, that has to be some kind of Australian owned feed or something from some station here in America that I'm just getting a skip for. So I kept listening, and I would hear foreign languages, and they would identify things, and I just still didn't believe it. I still thought it was maybe some kind of our AM band skip that was breaking over into this, or some kind of something. So I don't know how long it was, but I went down to the library and I asked the librarian if they had a book on radios, just radio in general, all different aspects. And she showed me this section, and I'm looking through it, and there's a book there on radio communications. And I pull it out and I'm looking through it, and I get to the chapter on shortwave radio, and it kind of dawns on my little 10-year-old brain. SW1 shortwave 1, SW2 shortwave 2. So I start reading this chapter, and they're talking about, the meter bands and shortwave receivers and what frequencies it in. And I took this book home, and I looked at my little radio, shortwave 1, shortwave 2, and I thought, well, that's the same bands they're talking about in this book. That's got to be a shortwave band. So, and it talks about, when to listen and what bands to listen to during time of day. And I started discovering this stuff. And I was just on this little radio. Like I said, I'll try to put a picture of it with a telescopic antenna, which was doing pretty good back then because the noise level back then was nowhere near what it is now. Now, I'm fortunate enough to live out here in the country in a rural area, and I still have pretty low noise. My average noise level is probably S2 and lower. And sometimes at night it's so low that it doesn't even move my signal meter. But I started to listen to this stuff, and I started writing down what I would listen to and what times it was, and I'd try it the next night, and there they were again. And I didn't know anything about propagation. I didn't know anything about UTC, and I was reading this book, and I started learning all this stuff, and eventually I started trying to write some of these stations. And I didn't write a whole lot. I did once in a while because, like I said, as a 10-year-old kid, you don't have a lot of money to go down and buy postage stamps to send a letter to somewhere. And there was no internet. There was no smartphones, no emails, none of that stuff then. But every once in a while, I would get a response back, and I thought that was just the coolest damn thing. You're getting a card from some station on the other side of the world that you heard on a little radio sitting in your bedroom, and I thought, well, this is pretty damn neat. So I listened to shortwave for a while, but I didn't listen all the time. Because one, I'm 10 years old. Summertime comes, you're outside. School's going on. You know, yet so I had to. There's all that stuff I had to do, and plus, then when I got up to about 1980 and became a teenager, you do all the teenager stuff. There's junior high, then high school, and driving, and all through these years, I still listened to shortwave. Sometimes it was just few and far between because you're 10 years old, you become a teenager, you're doing all this stuff, and that was just me. That's not everybody, but usually that's what you do. But sometimes I would listen to it at night, and my interest in it never left me. And then after my father died in the late 80s, I was 21, 88. He I had to go to work because I'd graduated high. I'd been out of high school for 2 or 3 years. Had to go to work, tried to keep going. So my radio listening and music listening, everything sort of waned there for a while. Then I met my wife. We got married. We moved out here in the country. We were both working full time, swing shifts and stuff. So my short waves, I still listened, but it was few and far between. Well, not few and far between, but I might listen one night, then it might be 3 or 4 nights or a week before I could listen again. But in the 90s, things started to slow down just a little bit and get more stable, and jobs were stable, income was stable. So I managed to start saving some money around 1990. In 1991, I read that Drake was coming out with the R8 model. So I worked overtime. I did stuff and I saved up, and I bought a Drake R8. And all through the 80s, I was just using little portables and things like that from Radio Shack. And that Drake R8 was the very first big Top Gun receiver that I got. Plus, out here in the country, I was able to put up my big Alpha Delta, and that opened up a whole new world of shortwave that I never knew. Utility station, sideband, things like that I couldn't hear. And there were still a lot of stations back in the 90s. I mean, a lot of them have left now, but there was a lot back then. And out here in the country, my noise was really low in the 90s. It was, almost S0, or not, it wouldn't even touch S1. Now it's, like I said, it's about S1 and a half, something like that. But that just opened a new world, and that refueled my interest. And since things were more calm and I was working one shift and things were going on, I could devote more time to it. So I started listening to shortwave a little bit more than I did throughout the 80s, just because life was in the way in the 80s. You're growing up as a teenager in the early 20s, and my father dies and I'm on my own at 21. Life gets in the way of things. But I started to listen more consistent in the 90s. I still listen to a lot of music. I still have my big record album collection I listen to. And I listen to shortwave sometimes about three, maybe four nights a week now. And even though there's a lot of stations have gone, I still find, having low noise, I still find there's still interesting things to listen to, utility stations and things like that. So my interest hasn't waned per se. I don't have that excitement about it now that I did when I was, 10 years old and just discovering things. And that's the one thing I've noticed, especially for me. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I've noticed the older I get and as old as I've gotten, I don't get as excited about things anymore as I used to. When you're a kid, even a teenager, that your level of excitement is really high. I mean, everything is new. You're discovering things. When you get into your 50s, late 50s, like I am now, I'm 58. Life's beating you up, and you've seen things, you've been through things, and yeah, you enjoy it. You enjoy things, but sometimes you're just that excitement level isn't what it was when you were young. But that's okay. As long as you get enjoyment out of something, that's all that matters. And I still enjoy my shortwave. Even though it's a lot different now than it used to be. I've adapted and find different things to use it, and I decode sometimes. You can't do that. You couldn't do that back then very easy. But I plan, anyway, on being a shortwave listener, and at least until my time here is done, of course, or something happens, we have to move, and where we have to move to, I can't set anything up, or maybe these, because we have 40 acres out here in the country, but we're surrounded by about 2 to 3,000 acres of co-op farmland. And if they ever started to develop that or put solar, farm out here or something, if they done anything that caused me a shitload of noise where I couldn't really hear anything anymore or get enjoyment out of it, I would get out of it. But if that doesn't happen, I will probably be a shortwave listener until I die. And but I don't know honestly if shortwave listening is a young person's hobby much now or not, because I mean they young teenagers, early 20s, they discover it. Now some may find it fascinating and stick with it, but others, they may do it for a month or two and they just don't like the noise and the fading and doing UTC and trying to track schedules and stuff like that. And high speed internet now, there's all kinds of streaming. You can stream. A lot of shortwave stations also stream their audio over the internet. You can listen to it that way. So shortwave is kind of a small little niche, done by a certain kind of person, certain group. And I hope that some of the young people, 20s, early 20s, late teens, discover it and stick with it and try to keep it alive. But I just don't know. But as for me, I enjoy it still, and I still enjoy all my music collection, playing my albums, classic rock, all them songs from when I was a kid and into the 80s. I turned 20 years old in 1986, so I got to experience the 80s in all of its glory. And I miss those times. I do. I really miss those times. I miss the way shortwave used to be. And I miss the way radio used to be. All those independently owned medium wave stations, you never knew what you were going to hear. All those FM stations, they weren't playing the same 40 songs all day long over and over. And yeah, it was a kind of a magical time, being young. It was a great time to be young, and a great time for music, and a great time for listening to shortwave. And I really miss it. But that's sort of how my shortwave started. Like I said, with everything, you can't do it all the time. I don't care how much you enjoy something. You can't do it all the time, and you shouldn't do it all the time, because if you try to do something to excess, you will burn out. And I've gotten close to that point before on lots of things. I'd get into something, get burnt out on it and have to back off. And that's one of the most important things I've learned over the years is no matter how much you like something, try to do it in moderation, because if you do it in moderation, your chance of burnout is a lot less. And but everybody's different. So anyway, I'm gonna just quit rattling. Hopefully, I didn't put everyone to sleep. But that's sort of my little journey, how radio started for me and everything. So just want to thank you everyone for watching. That watches my little channel. I mean, my little channel is let's face it, I don't even have 1,000 subscribers, so it's small. I don't really plan on being a YouTube star or being all this and getting whatever. That's not my intention. If if I get it, the more subscribers I get, I appreciate it. I really do. But I don't focus a lot on this because, like I said, none of my stuff never changes, and everything I have has been done to death anyway on YouTube. But I do appreciate the ones that comment regularly. God, I can't say that. And I try to respond. Sometimes I don't because I just things are going on. But I really appreciate everyone that watches and wastes a little bit of their time on this small little ass channel. So anyway, having said that, I want to thank you guys again for watching. Hope if you're a shortwave listener, hope wherever you're at in the world, you're having good conditions. And so far, 2025 has been good to you. And I don't know what I'll do on the next one, but whatever that may be, I'll see you guys and girls on the next one. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you later.